and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup.
And as usual, there's lots of bad news, but our federal LGBTQ rights bill is moving in Congress.
Up to a certain place, anyway, and then we'll see what happens to it. And meanwhile, of course, the president's Health and Human Services Department wants more discrimination against LGBTQ people.
One of our legal groups, Lambda Legal, is pushing a class action lawsuit to gain Social Security survivor benefits for a lot of people.
That'd be nice. And of course, we'll update you on anti-LGBTQ legislation in Texas, Tennessee, and Iowa.
The valedictorian at a religious college came out right during his commencement speech.
And there's more turmoil in the Methodist Church over its anti-LGBTQ policies, including my heroes of the week, who are 13 and 14 years old.
A famous athlete seemed to come out and then said, never mind.
But an out gay legislator has come out about using PrEP.
The Tony nominations are out, and they're gay, gay, gay.
We'll review Ink on Broadway, a play about Rupert Murdoch, Tootsie the musical, and a revival of Arthur Miller's All My Sons with Annette Bening.
Now, last week we talked about these three LGBT cases taken by the Supreme Court that will be heard in the next term. We talked to Arthur Leonard. Thank you, Arthur, for that. We were not terribly optimistic about the Supreme Court, given its composition.
No.
Linda Greenhouse is the longtime Supreme Court correspondent at the New York Times, and she's a little more optimistic. She says, first of all, the court did not buy all the right-wing questions about that.
That is true. That was impressive. The right wing, in their writing about these cases in the submissions to the court, had proposed that the court answer certain questions about these cases. And the court just said, the hell with that. We have our own question, and it doesn't comport with yours.
And that question that the court is asking is whether Title VII prohibits discrimination against transgender people based on their status, one, on their status as transgender, or two, sex stereotyping under the Price-Waterhouse case of 1989.
Those are logical questions. And the right-wing questions had been very skewed.
Linda says, if the court is true to the direction of sex discrimination precedents and ordinary uses of English, the word
wait,
sex,
those are two very big hurdles for this court.
All three cases ought to be easy wins. And she quotes the judge at the lower court, Judge Carbanis on the Second Circuit, in the Zarda case, which is about the sexual orientation being sex discrimination. And the judge said, Zarda's sexual orientation is a function of his sex. This should be the end of the analysis.
Well, we, of course, shall see, to quote a famous living American, our president. But, I would love to think that the court would follow that logic. I have no such illusions.
We have so much to worry about. I just want you all to have a nice summer. And not have to be, why, there's nothing.
Anything is possible, and the court, you have sat here for years and said that these decisions are much more political than legal or logical, but it's entirely possible that they could decide, well, we don't give up much by deciding for the gays in this, so maybe we'll give them this and move on to other ways that we can be more harsh.
And it was no less than Antonin Scalia who started the ball rolling on saying sex discrimination can mean presentation and things like that. So
I just don't believe this court pays a lot of attention to precedent. I think they're off on their own little rogue mission.
All right, have a nice summer. Now,
I I want nothing more than to have my cynicism punctured.
What's going on in the House of Representatives? It's not all about Russia and Attorney General Barr,
No.
as appalling as that is.
This week it is also about the Equality Act, which the House Judiciary Committee, I assume, as they're doing it as we're taping, will easily pass and push forward to the House itself, where it also should pass quite easily, perhaps even with some Republican support, until it comes to a screeching halt at the United States Senate. Maybe. Now, maybe some Republican senators will decide that they think we're human beings and deserve equal treatment, and, you know, the Equality Act covers a lot of people. 1 second, and I'll get to that.
Every state poll says people are for this.
Well, every
single state poll.
Every state poll says people are for a lot of things that we're not doing anything about, like climate change. And then, you know, our president, who speaks out of 9 sides of his mouth on any given day, would he sign something like that? There are a lot of gay Republicans who say he would.
Is there any tricky way to get this in the Senate on the floor? We have things like that
Well,
we do.
perhaps if we could attach it to funding for the wall. But here's the deal. We've fought over this for many, many years. Unbelievably in this country, people are not across the board who are LGBT protected from discrimination. 22 states have passed a non-discrimination law that, for the most part, includes sexual orientation and gender identity. There are a few little spots in that. A lot of cities in the other states have passed such laws. But
Jackson, Mississippi.
But in fact, in 28 states in this country, there is no statewide non-discrimination law for sexual orientation and gender identity or expression, which is why in some states it is legal for a baker to refuse a wedding cake to a same-sex couple unless the Supreme Court decides that sex discrimination is covered under Title VII, or unless we pass the Equality Act. Now, we've had versions that were just employment only.
Yep.
We've had versions at the state level that left out public accommodations because they thought the cake discussion was too difficult.
This one is the whole 9 yards, and it includes other things besides sexual orientation and gender identity.
Because what it does is we finally decided to take a comprehensive look at civil rights laws federally across the board. And when we looked, we discovered in coalition with many other groups that there were some laws that didn't fully cover sex discrimination or race discrimination or other things. So it's really a patchwork. So everybody sat down together and said, let's write something that fixes all of this. And the beauty of that is that it's not just about us, it's about everybody, and we might get more support.
So let them veto it and see how people feel.
Well,
Anyway.
will they notice? But anyway, it is now officially on the floor. It is officially moving forward. And HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, is finally behind a comprehensive bill after, for a while, just doing employment only or sexual orientation only, whatever.
Leaving transgender out.
So they've now
The last time the House passed it was without gender identity.
Maybe. That was a while ago. But they now have an online video campaign of various celebrities and politicians and regular people supporting this. So, and it's a pretty nice little campaign. So I wanted to show you one version of it from actress Justino Machado. And Justino Machado she was on, I have this all written down, I hope, One Day at a Time, the new online version, Jane the Virgin, 6 Feet Under. She has a gay brother. She is an ally to the community. And I thought her video was particularly crisp and strong. So let's look at Justine Machado supporting the Equality Act.
I'm Justina Machado, and I'm a proud American for the Equality Act. Everyone, all of us have someone in our lives who is LGBTQ, whether it's a family member like myself or a close friend. No one should be discriminated against because of who they are or who they love. And that's why Congress has to pass the Equality Act now. Right now, pulling it up, right here. I have a brother who is gay, who is an incredible human being, and it's important for me that he's safe, and it's important for me that he gets the same rights that I get, and it's important for me that he can go anywhere and live his life the way he wants to live it. If my brother were to drive from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., his rights would change at least a dozen times. I am aware of this, and that is incredibly scary. To say, is discrimination gone? That's laughable. Every single day we see something in the news. Every single day where there's somebody getting hurt because of the color of their skin or because of their sexual orientation. Every day. So it's not gone. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act now. Join us. Text Equality Act to 472-472 and become a community co-sponsor.
Thank you, Justina.
Yes, and we would suggest contacting your members of Congress.
Definitely.
Even if you know that they're terrible on it, let them at least hear from you that you're for it, and your senators, and see if we can get this moving on the floor.
And even if you know they're great on it, they could use some reinforcement and support too.
Because we do need this. You have things like the Trump administration this week essentially asserting, or literally asserting, sex does not refer to gender identity. They are preparing regulations to allow healthcare providers, hospitals, and insurers to discriminate against transgender patients. And they are rewriting the Obamacare rule that protects them. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of stories where transgender people are getting it in the neck. It is very, reading all these stories this week, the way that they're thumping, the right wing thumping on this and using transgender people as scapegoats is so evil, and to a community that is already downtrodden is just very depressing, and I can't imagine what it's like for my transgender brothers and sisters.
And it is just scapegoating. It is opportunistic. There's nothing real about it. It's just a convenient way for them to raise money, to keep their right-wing organizations in business, and to have an easy victim of their hatred. And
they are also proposing, they're putting out regulations, which you'll be able to comment on if you would like, to stop collecting data on LGBTQ youth in foster care, because LGBTQ youth are disproportionately in foster care, and they don't want you to know that.
And they don't want to do anything for them. So if they don't collect data on them, then they don't have to do anything.
All right.
But I'd like to mention a way in which some people in states are fighting back on something. The trans ban in the military. Well, a number of states this week, California, New Mexico, Nevada, Washington, and Oregon have announced that they will take trans people in their National Guard. The states control those, and they can accept and encourage trans people to join the National Guard.
People are fighting back in the Bronx. There's something called the Trump Golf Links at Ferry Point. People
ask me if I play Trump courses, and I say, who do you think I am?
This is a public course, but he built it. And it's named after him.
He profits from it.
So it is nice to see that the revenue there has fallen by more than 40% since he's become president, among other business woes that the family is trying to hide from Congress. By the way, that Maureen Dowd column about the out French ambassador to the United States, Gerard Araud, this guy is stepping down, but he says in this interview, first of all, he's not going back to France. What does that say? And then he's moving to the Upper East Side with his husband, and he told her that Trump is a political genius and Jared Kushner is a really smart guy, and he entertained Stephen Miller. This is very yucky. That's what I have to say about that.
Very.
There's the Trump nominee for Assistant Secretary of State for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, Robert Destro. He opposes the Equality Act. He called for trench warfare versus the LGBT community, and he says that faith should be used as a pretext for discrimination against LGBTQ people, and he purposely in public misgenders trans people. Now, we got a picture up there of Franklin Graham,
on the left,
who went after Pete Buttigieg this past week, and a lot of people dismissed him. But the reason I'm putting him up there with his father is because
Billy Graham.
Billy Graham in 1960 led the effort to stop Jack Kennedy from being president of the United States because he's a Catholic. So like father, like son, bigots.
Oh, yeah, big time. Billy was a little smoother. Franklin is a little coarser, but it continues. But, Pete is under attack from a lot of forces this week as he climbs in the polls. And they found that there are these two right-wing creeps, sort of dirty tricksters, who decided that they would start this rumor, or they actually
claim to be.
They grabbed this guy and made him sign some statement that he'd been sexually assaulted by Pete. And when the guy realized what was happening, he said, no, 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 no.
Well, Obama, of course, was the right wing was spreading rumors that he had been a male hooker in Chicago.
Oh,
that
I remember
didn't gain very much traction.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that Liz Smith is his
PR woman.
PR woman. I mean, she's a very hard hitting. She's getting him on everything. We want him here, Liz, on the Gay USA show.
She claims she wants him everywhere. Hello, gay show.
Yeah.
Don't hold your breath. But you can see him everywhere else.
And Chasten Buttigieg, 29, is emerging as the sort of the most visible spouse on the campaign trail.
I don't think he's going to be more visible than Jill Biden.
We'll
Dr.
see.
Jill Biden.
Now, they're having this family leadership summit in Iowa, hosted by the anti-LGBT Bob Vanderplatz. And it's usually just for Republicans, but he invited all the Democrats. And at first, Pete said, oh, maybe, but now everybody's saying no. Beto, Pete, Kamala, Corey, Bernie, and Elizabeth have all said no.
He's a right-wing nutcase. He's very evil and very destructive. And, I'm generally a don't be afraid to walk into the lion's den type, but he is beneath contempt.
Ann and I went on Bill O'Reilly's show once together.
We did.
But I'm very encouraged to read about this new supermajority, this new group to harness the power of women in elections. And it's intending to mobilize 1 million women, not just to vote, but to be organizers and leaders in their community. It's Cecile Richards, late of the Planned Parenthood, Alicia Garza, Black Lives Matter, Ajen Poo, the executive director of the National Domestic Workers Alliance, and it's aided by Pantsuit Nation, which has 3.5 million members.
I think I signed up for it accidentally.
Well, why not?
I'm also encouraged by the fact that Pete Buttigieg has decided not to take any money from federal lobbyists or corporate PACs. He's returning $30,000 that he got from some of them. He's sworn off any of that kind of money, as have a number of other candidates. But what I want him to do, and I think he has shown some signs of doing, is the ability to learn. He is young. He's not experienced at this level. Not everything he says is something we agree with, certainly, or not everything he does, but he listens, and he is capable of changing his mind, and I think that's
Well,
good.
I hope that the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee will change its mind. They have said they will not work with political consulting firms that back Democratic insurgents against these right-wing Democrats.
Terrible.
Like that guy in Illinois who's anti-gay.
Terrible.
But Bernie people have met with him and said, are you serious about this? This is really awful.
Well, it's a very short-sighted and stupid kind of thing, and it's circling the wagons.
Well, Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor of Texas, made a stupid remark about Beto O'Rourke. He said he's so light in his loafers, he floats off the ground at times.
He said it on the Laura Ingraham show.
Like Jesus. So even Laura said, you don't mean that pejoratively, do you? Not explaining what she meant. He said, no, I just meant he's a lightweight.
Well, I think we should spend a little time on Biden because he made his official announcement after we taped last week. I have very, very mixed feelings about Joe Biden, but I did think the original...
He's older than us.
Yes, he is. Not by much, but he is. I liked the Charlottesville opening ad or promo. I thought that
You
was...
did like it.
I liked it. I thought it was a great, hard-hitting thing to start with.
Okay.
You didn't?
I didn't like the music, and I thought it was very general. And I heard some women on Facebook say, all men are created equal. That's the line you're going to start with.
Oh, I
and
didn't hear
they
that.
shut it off after that. So, but look, I mean, of course,
No, I don't like that.
Well, some people are saying he is gaining traction because he is just going hard against Trump. And that is appealing to a lot of people.
I think, I think Pete came out of the gate going hard against Trump. I think that's not exclusively Biden's territory, and I hate his unwillingness, even as he inches forward, to admit that he should have let the other accusers of Clarence Thomas testify.
Well, when he was on The View, he said we did ask her to testify, and she didn't want to.
Bull.
I mean, that's
Bull.
not true.
Those women are sitting around still waiting to testify.
Right. Let's have them in. Some people want to go after Clarence Thomas now. Let's have a hearing about it now.
Absolutely. Happy to do so. But, I don't know whether Biden is the one and only who can beat Trump. There's a long, long list of sins he has committed, and he is just unwilling to admit any of that, and is pulling the, never apologize routine, and it's not attractive.
The thing in the CNN poll, and polls at this point, folks, are not that meaningful, but he's at 50% support among people of color. That's like kind of what Hillary had going into the Democratic primaries, and the people of color make up the majority of the vote in the South.
But people
and
of
those
color,
states are very important to winning the nomination, even though we're unlikely to win them in the fall.
But people of color may have preferred Hillary to Bernie, but they did not vote in the same numbers for Hillary, obviously, that they did for Obama, and that was had an effect on her.
But we're talking about getting the nomination here, and that's what
I understand, but I'm saying that down the road, you have to do a lot more authentically for all communities, and particularly people of color, to earn the nomination and the win. And if Biden goes the same route as Hillary, that's not a good thing.
Right.
But and Biden makes, tries to joke about Trump calling him old, but Biden does look old.
He did in that video.
Yeah.
I think he was. That's the other thing. I thought he was ill-lit. Now, these may sound like trivial things, but we've worked in this field for a long time, and it is better to look good than to feel good.
Here's the secret, Joe. You listening?
Yeah.
Put a pink gel on the light.
We have them up here.
We do. Just one. That's all it takes. And back to Trump. We told you last week that a trans refugee from Honduras had finally been let out of custody by ICE. Well,
Nicole Garcia Aguilar.
Back in custody. ICE, the minute she got out, picked her up again. She, 24 years old, she's been held for a year. She is a trans woman from Honduras where she was very badly treated, and now she's back in ICE custody.
And I mentioned there the Trump nominee for the State Department, who's anti-gay. We get emails all week long about these bigoted judges that he continues to, who are anti-LGBTQ activists against the rights of people of color and women. And we've even stopped mentioning all these names on the show, but I think we've got to get back to you in your states contacting your senators and saying, or running ads saying, don't vote for this person, so that you at least educate people that your Republican senators, Cory Gardner in Colorado, Susan Collins in Maine, are voting for these people and enabling this horrible judiciary that we're going to be stuck with for the rest of our lives, certainly.
Well, it's certainly never too early to start going after these people for next year's election.
Yes.
Because it's going to take some real digging to get them out of there.
And then there was the synagogue shooting in Southern California, and Trump called it a hate crime, and he said, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. Hard to believe. It's hard to believe that you're the president. I mean, presiding
very
over
hard.
He, that same, I think it was just the day before that shooting, he reaffirmed his embrace of the fine people in Charlottesville who were shouting, Jews will not replace us.
Yes.
The day before.
They were there in support of their great General Robert E. Lee.
Great General Robert E. Lee.
Known for riding around the South chanting, Jews will not replace us.
Right.
All right. Well, let's move on to other news. Yeah.
Okay.
Minnesota, the House of Representatives there voted to bar conversion therapy for youth. We'll follow that through the rest of the legislature.
In Tennessee, the Senate there is voting on the hate slate of anti-LGBT bills, but they spiked the one about letting youth agencies discriminate.
Are we slowly cutting away?
Well,
this
there's so many corporations yelling at them. I hope
and the Tennessee Titans football team has gotten on board now.
They did.
Yeah.
And the Nashville Predators of the NHL.
I'm not familiar with them.
I had to throw that in. All right.
That's an unfortunate name.
Yes. And in Iowa, the right wing at the last minute is trying to strip. They have gender identity in their statewide civil rights law. The legislature is trying to strip it out.
Well, what they did was they are trying to pass a provision that gives both the state and local governments the right to have Medicaid not apply to trans people who want surgery. And this is a fight that's going on across the country. They have passed it. Will the governor sign it is the question. Now, we had already won a court decision that was unconstitutional, and then the legislature went ahead and passed it again. And if the governor signs it, the ACLU is going to have to go back to court and again have it declared unconstitutional. Because
we do win in court sometimes. Still, Trump's only got about 20% of the federal judiciary now. 20%.
Well,
in Kansas.
On this same subject, just before we leave that, in Wisconsin, a court just ordered the state to let Medicaid cover trans surgeries.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And in Kansas, the high court there ruled under the state constitution, it protects a woman's right to abortion. No appeal possible to federal authorities, even if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade. So the conservatives now want a constitutional amendment in Kansas to ban abortion.
All right, I need a few good news stories from the world of religion. I want to start with the United Methodist Church.
Sure.
We told you a few weeks ago, that the General Synod, I guess, had voted to retain and strengthen the anti-LGBT rules of the United Methodist Church. No out clergy, no same-sex marriages, mostly African portions of the church voting for this, but also right-wing churches in the U.S.
And the High Court of the Methodist Church just upheld that.
Yes. But there is a reaction, and the reaction is that various congregations are withholding their dues and refusing to pay. They are putting rainbow flags up all over on their churches. They are filing challenges to the traditional plan that was voted by these church members.
And the great story is in Omaha.
Yes.
Where the entire confirmation class, said, we don't want to be confirmed into this church at this moment with what's going on against our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. They said they love the congregation, but that the church's stance is immoral. And they were 8 teenagers, and they received a standing ovation from the congregation.
They were at the confirmation ceremony, 8 of them. They're 13 and 14 years old, and they had written this statement, and they got up and read it to the congregation that was expecting them just to be confirmed, and they said, no, we refuse. It's like draft dodgers. They said, we are not going to participate in this immoral construct.
Omaha.
8 13 and 14-year-olds in Omaha, and yes, they got a standing ovation.
Yes, and then there was Brigham Young University, where Matt Easton was the valedictorian, and he stood up. We got a picture of him there at graduation. He gave a very nice speech. I listened to the whole thing. He told the crowd that he was proud to be a gay son of God. I am not broken. I am loved and important in the plan of our Creator. Each of us are. And there were no reports of anybody trying to snatch the diploma out of his hands.
He got huge applause.
He got very nice applause. And here's the Brigham Young University code as it has evolved. You can be out. you can advocate for LGBT, but physical intimacy is still forbidden. And that means kissing, too.
It's also forbidden, I believe, for unmarried straight couples.
Well, but
probably not as highly regulated or punished. But he gave interviews. He talked about how scared he was to do this. He had come out to family and a couple of friends a couple of years ago, but basically he was still closeted.
He was not a gay activist.
Not at all. And he had submitted this speech to the university 2 weeks before he was scheduled to give it.
Did he put the gay stuff in it?
Yes.
And?
They said, go right ahead. Go for it,
Otherwise,
they said.
we're going to get a big story about us not letting you talk about it.
But he got up and he was scared and he was shaking a little, but you can watch it online. It's really quite wonderful.
Yeah, it's a cell phone video that they put up.
Yeah, but it's very clear and you can hear the whole thing. And the crowd just explodes in joy when he says, I am a gay son of God.
It is. And there's also joy in Tampa Bay. We have the first out gay male cheerleader for the Buccaneers in team history. His name is Lorenzo Gilbert. He hopes his example will help others dare to be different. We have any
well, we got a lesbian mayor in Tampa. Now we got a gay cheerleader for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
What's in the water there?
I don't know. But not so good stuff in the water in California.
Yeah.
I think we celebrated the elevation of an out gay man to head the Democratic Party in California, Eric Bauman.
We did.
And we thought, oh, great. And it turns out that he is a sexual harasser and not a good guy.
Repeatedly, he went after this guy repeatedly, insisted on oral sex with William Floyd, 28 years old. And he, without his consent, and then he said, if you cross me, I will break you. So he is suing William Floyd, the state and local parties.
Well, he says the party knew about this for years. It was not a well-kept secret. And the party is a cesspool, he says. So I asked someone in California, what about this, the Democratic Party? And he said, yeah, this is ugly, but it's really not the whole story about the Democratic Party, but this is ugly.
All right.
As it is.
Also suing is Roy Moore. He's got a defamation suit against Sacha Baron Cohen over the Who is America series, where he interviewed him playing an Israeli Mossad agent, and he used a wand that could sniff out pedophiles and put it all over Roy Moore. So Roy's suing about this.
We're going to have to give Roy some media training.
He wants $95 million from Showtime and Cohen. And the judge in D.C.
Don't hold your breath, Roy.
The judge in D.C. ruled that the suit can be moved to New York City, where Moore's lawyer said they just want to get a leftist jury. You don't know New York, but I don't think you're going to win.
I don't think any jury would give him $95 million for anything.
I'm very encouraged about what happened in Michigan this past week. Federal judges found that the congressional districts and the state legislative districts were unconstitutionally drawn, must be redrawn prior to the 2020 elections, ordered a special election in 2020 for state Senate districts, which are normally not up for 2 more years, and they've already passed an independent redistricting commission for 2022. We have to get districts back. We just need fair lines. Fair. We don't have to skew them towards us, as they do in California.
We're getting a lot of decisions like that around the country.
Except from the Supreme Court.
But the, North Carolina, Wisconsin, don't we need to redistrict in New York more fairly?
We do. For the state Senate, absolutely.
Yeah. In Florida, the legislature changed its mind about something. There is a desire for a memorial at the Pulse nightclub to honor the 49 people killed at that mostly gay Latino club in 2016, and the legislature at first said it would do it, and then it zeroed it out in the current budget. They said, nope, not a penny. But now they've changed their mind. They're going to give $500,000. They've given a lot of money to Parkland for $1 million following their tragedy, and we want everybody to be able to do what they need to do. But I wonder whether the fact that it's a gay Latino nightclub versus a suburban high school, whether that makes any difference. But I'm glad that the legislature reversed itself.
In Arizona, The High Court ruled there that in a National Center for Lesbian Rights case, can require parents to provide counseling, therapy, and other expert help to children who may be transgender, even if one parent does not support the treatment. The child has to be at risk for physical danger or significantly impaired emotionally for the court to step in. But in this case, the mom allowed the born male child to wear a skirt to school. The dad objected. He got custody, full-time custody of the kid, and the child threatened self-harm. The dad later agreed to therapy for the child and himself.
Good. Nice to hear.
What else? The Lambda class action federal suit on
Yeah, tell me this.
Okay. Same-sex spouses are seeking equal access to Social Security for survivor benefits because we couldn't get married all those years. And if you married at the last minute and the person died, as with James Obergefell, who was joining this case, you don't get any. You got to be married for 9 months, and some of these people were not able to be doing that. Yep. This is a class action suit. The primary plaintiffs were together for 43 years. One died of cancer 6 months after they married, and they're trying to say, this is very important to all of you. If you have these kind of situations where they're trying to go back and say, you should have been able to be married and get your benefits. And
that has been agreed to by a number of courts, that is a legitimate interpretation of these laws.
Okay.
So I would say they have a good chance with that.
Okay.
International news.
All right.
Well, speaking of marriage, the High Court in India says that the Hindu Marriage Act, I don't know why it's a Hindu Marriage Act, but does allow trans women to marry men. That gender identity is self-determined, and therefore a trans person can marry, can self-identify and marry someone of the then opposite sex.
And it bans...
Because India has not allowed same-sex marriage
It also bans what they're calling sex reassignment surgery on intersex children.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Because we want self-determination there, too. I wanted to show, we talked about this a little last week, the video from Armenia of the trans woman addressing the parliament.
Yes.
It is wild, but it's in Armenian, and it has subtitles, so you should look for it online. Maybe we could put it in the show note.
Yes, we could. I'll make a note of that.
Okay. Trans activists invited to address the parliament. I'm not even sure everyone in the parliament knew they were going to be addressed by a trans activist, but she got up and gave a fierce speech about discrimination, but the legislators were really upset, and this one woman in the audience just started screaming at her.
One MP called for her to be burned alive.
Yes.
Now, this is a country where homosexuality has been decriminalized, but that discrimination against LGBT people is rife. She was the first Armenian to obtain a passport several years ago under her new name.
Well, she's terrific, and the woman screaming at her is unbelievable, and it's definitely a video to watch to see what's going on in the world.
And the Court of Arbitration for Sport is screaming at Caster Semenya. Now, they are now saying that female athletes with high levels of testosterone have to take suppressants to compete in some women's races in international events, including the Olympics. And Caster won that as a two-time Olympic champion in racing. So now they're saying up to the 800 meters, you're going to have to take suppressants. Maybe not after that. It's all very murky, but this is their decision.
Well, it's awful.
And Semenya says they're trying to slow me down, and she will not be held back. She's appealing.
The Times, New York Times did a breaking news piece when this decision came down today as we're taping, and I read some of the comments that immediately came up, and they were wonderful. Every one of them said, this is absolute nonsense. You know, if I'm 6 feet tall and basketball players are 7 feet tall, should I get some extra booster chair or something to play basketball? Should the net be moved down every time I get the ball to compensate? People have different traits and different skills and different body types.
Yes, all the jockeys have to have the same weight on the horse, don't they?
They do, but they adjust that with weights that they put in the saddles, in the blankets. They have little pouches that they put those in. But the idea that women have to suppress the natural testosterone level in their bodies.
Where's the right wing on this and what God intended?
Yeah, exactly.
How about that?
That's a nice analysis. Maybe Franklin Graham will support us.
Yeah.
But it's outrageous.
Well,
outrageous.
in Bangladesh, they're supporting trans people, the Hijras. Is that how we say that? They can now register to vote in the third gender category.
In the UK, in London, London is going to hold its first Trans Pride Fest on September 14th.
In Hackney.
There have been others around Britain, but this is the first one in London.
Also
September
in the
14th.
United Kingdom, Prince Harry's mental health charity, Heads Together, invited the transgender youth charity Mermaids to join in their wellness efforts. The Theresa May government is in the process of reforming the 2004 Gender Recognition Act to demedicalize the process for changing gender.
Well, there's a
and
picture.
it's going through there's a picture of the two of them, Harry and Meghan, because Meghan's in the news too. The Duchess of Sussex, she says she plans to raise their child with a fluid approach to gender, including a gender-neutral nursery.
But we would like Queen Elizabeth to be a little more progressive in her thinking. There she is greeting the Sultan of Brunei a couple of years ago. And next, she will be greeting the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, at a state visit.
Only 3 presidents have had that, George W. Bush, Obama, and now Trump is going to get a state visit. There's a lot of protest over there, and there will be protests over there on June 3rd.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of Brunei, J.P. Morgan just told its staff, you got to boycott all the Sultan's hotels around the world.
But the Royal Dutch Shell Company is in trouble because they do enormous business with Brunei on their oil and gas businesses.
The Royal Shell Company, a corporate partner of the Human Rights Campaign?
They are so pro-gay in their literature and their employee practices, and now they have been, it's noticed that they're doing all this business with Brunei.
Well, something called STA Travel for students and young people has stopped selling flights to Brunei.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some say the Sultan is compensating for the lavish lifestyle of himself and his brother. The prince owns giant yachts called, can I say this on television?
We'll see.
Tits, Nipple 1 and Nipple 2. This is the prince, the brother of the Sultan, where they want to stone you to death for adultery and homosexualdy. The brothers are constant companions in hedonism, and they both had harems.
Well, where do we draw the line in who we do business with?
I draw the line at Bolsonaro.
Thank you.
He told reporters this week, this is the president of Brazil, that they should avoid being known as, that the country should avoid being known as a gay destination because we have families here. He said tourists were more than welcome to come here and have sex with a woman. Or have sex with a woman and come. I can't remember. I don't speak Portuguese.
I think the horse has left the barn on his not wanting it to be a gay tourism paradise.
The tourism industry is appalled, and
Brazil has been a gay tourism paradise for decades.
And the out legislator down there, David Miranda, said Bolsonaro managed to be anti-gay and promote sex tourism in the same breath, an image that the country was trying to get over.
And what about Elizabeth Bishop?
What about her?
She lived there for years with her lover, the Brazilian architect.
Well.
You've forgotten your history, Mr. Bolsonaro.
I have.
And we were very moved by watching some clips from the funeral of Lyra McKee in Northern Ireland. We'll link to that in our show note, too.
She's an out lesbian journalist who was killed by the dissident IRA in a shooting. They apologized. They said we meant to just kill police. So the priest who was her friend, who we told you spoke up for her at the funeral and did make reference to her partner there. Yep. And they're saying, since all these world leaders were there, especially from Ireland and the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland, part of the United Kingdom, that all they're together, that it might help with the push for same-sex marriage in Northern Ireland.
Well, they'd also like it to further the cause of peace in Northern Ireland.
Nonviolence.
You know what I liked? I liked that the surviving partner was with Theresa May, with Varadkar, with everybody, Jeremy Corbyn there. She was there in a T-shirt and a blazer. She didn't put on a single air in any of this or go out of her way to impress them. She just, loved her
I was very moved by the video, and we will include it in our emails. If you go to our website at gayusatv.org, you can sign up for weekly emails from us. And
just one each week.
One a week. One a week.
And it'll tell you what's coming up on the show that week, and it'll give you a few added extras like links to these videos.
All right. In Australia, there's a cricketer prominent named James Faulkner, and he tweeted about having dinner with his mum and a man he identified as his boyfriend, together for 5 years. This is what he put up. It got a lot of support and praise for his courage. But now he says...
From his teammates, from everybody.
He says, I'm not gay. That other guy is a housemate and my best friend. And he said, but it's been fantastic to see the support from and for the LGBT community, and I apologize for any unintended offense. But I thought it was a sweet story. And Saudi Arabia executed 37 in a mass execution, including at least one person convicted of gay sex. Most all of them were Shias accused of conspiring with Iran. Anyway, it's some of those were teenagers as well when they were arrested. It's a barbaric country.
But one of our best friends. Even if they did knock down the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and kill thousands of people.
Yeah, okay.
AIDS news. Well, congratulations to Pennsylvania Representative Brian Sims.
Yes.
He's the first, maybe only, out gay member of the legislature there in Pennsylvania. And he tweeted, I guess, this week.
On Facebook, actually.
Facebook, thank you. I take Truvada for PrEP. Stop shaming me. I'm
starting this day off smart, proactive, and in control. How about you? He wrote.
And people wrote some nasty stuff about, well, it isn't really 100% effective. Now only 99.9%.
So he said, stigmatizing sexual choices literally kills us, so don't do it. He said, my sex life is none of your business. I'm just talking about I'm using protection.
No shame in my game, just pride. He also talked about it being too expensive and not accessible to everyone, and that is very true.
Well, he's better off than those poor kids who have, infants who have seizures, who are now paying 97,000% more for a drug that they need. It was $40, it's now $39,000 a vial. How does this happen in this country?
Martin Shkreli buys the company and jacks it up to whatever price he wants.
Stop it. I mean, Trump makes noises about I'm going to get drug prices under control. The Democrats make noises. Nobody's doing anything.
Well,
that should not happen.
Ireland just approved...
They should be put in jail for murder.
Of course. Ireland just approved Truvada for PrEP. And Gilead is right on the scene lobbying for no access to a generic version. Keep those prices up. Keep giving us billions of dollars. That's how it happens, because they lobby for it.
Yeah. Well, this company, Questcor, made $1 billion on the drug.
And Trump
and bribed doctors to prescribe it.
Yeah, it's quite a system.
And socialism. You're going to call us socialists because we say that's not right. That the market has to have some limits. That's the kind of answer they need to give when they're accused of socialism.
I agree. The Trump administration was going to cut off funding for HIV and AIDS to South Africa on the grounds that the program was not correctly run, as opposed to
not enough abstinence?
Like the Trump administration, which runs everything so well. Well, now they're restoring funding because they've been shamed into it.
Well, it's been raised this week that young people on their parents' insurance, that is, they're allowed to under the Obamacare thing up to 26. It's a hindrance to getting PrEP because the federal rule permits release of info on billing statements about what the kid is getting. And so that needs to be corrected.
It's all very complicated. All right, and the other AIDS-related story this week is that there is a new documentary that is coming out called Killing Patient Zero. And it's a fascinating story. This is playing this week at the Toronto Hot Docs Festival, but will undoubtedly show up somewhere near you or on TV eventually. And it all goes back to the story. There's Gaetan Dugas, who was a Canadian flight attendant, and he was stigmatized as patient zero.
As the guy who brought AIDS to North America and the world.
Utter nonsense.
He was listed on a sheet by the person doing the research as patient, and there was an O, which stood for out of California, not zero. He was patient 57. Yeah. He was not, and they'd done the blood tests on these people. He was not even related to anybody else in the cluster that they looked at.
But Randy Schiltz, gay journalist from San Francisco, wrote a book about the epidemic called "And the Band Played On."
Made into a movie.
Yes, and he, his publisher, out gay Michael Denny at
St. Martin's.
Thank you. Said the book is not selling. We need to hype it up a little.
No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we're going to highlight the story of this guy, and we're going to call him Patient Zero. And the book took off, and it became this huge scandal on the front of magazines.
Well,
Patient Zero.
60 Minutes did a piece on the book, and you were hoping that it was going to finally bring attention to the epidemic, and all they wanted to talk about was Patient Zero.
Oh,
which made everybody say, you people, you take no responsibility, you screw everybody, you don't care who you give this to, the hell with you. That's what it did.
And that's why hundreds of thousands and millions of people died, because they created this stigma. And what they actually did was they gave the story to the New York Post.
Knowing that they would sensationalize it. And they did.
And they did. And so that is the story told in this new documentary, Killing Patient Zero. So
Michael
keep your
Denny
eyes
says
open
he's
for
sorry.
That. Well, I'm glad he's sorry. I'm sorry he did it in the first place.
Oh, by the way, there was an outbreak of HIV via a VIP spa in New Mexico where they used dirty needles for injecting facials. Yeah. And they closed this place, but 2 known HIV infections, so anyone who got that treatment there needs to get tested. And HIV rates are rising among the homeless due to the opioid epidemic and the sharing of syringes. And in New York City, we've got an outbreak of hepatitis A among gay, bi men, mostly in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens, mostly people of color. And it's also happening in Virginia and in another state, Florida. Get vaccinated. You can get vaccinated against hepatitis A.
You know, we talk about ending the epidemic, and we talk about making progress to that and all these great markers. But the fact is, it's still there, and it's still being spread, and we have not found a way to really treat everybody and bring an end to this. And until we're willing to go into all those pockets of opioid users and homeless people and young people of color, we're not going to end this.
Okay, Tony nominations. Why don't we just read the non-gay ones, because that won't take much time.
I didn't even write them all down, because I thought I don't have that much time left in life.
Very happy that the best musical, The Prom, was very, very gay.
Nominated for Best Musical.
Leading actress in a musical includes Caitlin Kinnunen from The Prom, who plays the young lesbian. Actor in a musical, Brooks Ashmanskas, from The Prom.
If you can't say them, don't bother.
Ashmanskas, I'm sorry, Brooks, Buttigieg. And Santino Fontana for Tootsie, which I saw last night. Revival of a play, Boys in the Band and Torch Song got nominated. And for play, Choir Boy, Terrell Alvin McCraney, our buddy who did Moonlight, the movie, and Taylor Mack, Gary, the sequel to Titus Andronicus, was nominated. We could go on, and Jeremy Pope got 2 nominations, including for playing the gay role in Choir Boy. Andre DeShields, our buddy in Hadestown, was nominated for Best Featured Actor in a Musical and Featured Actor in a Play. Robin DeJesus for playing the Emery role in Boys in the Band, and a bunch of other people playing gay things.
If you care, the Tonys will be on CBS on June 9th.
But Terrell Alvin McCraney, we got a picture of him, will also play the lead in a Steppenwolf play next month.
There he is in the middle, the tall guy.
It's called Ms. Black for President, about the presidential run of Joan Jett Black. and he co-wrote it with director Tina Landau.
He's terrific. We loved having him here a couple of years ago when he, for Moonlight, which was from his original story.
You and I saw Ink together about Rupert Murdoch getting his empire started in Britain, hiring an editor to sensationalize The Sun, by James Graham, who I really like. This is Bertie Carville, and who was nominated for a Tony, and Johnny Lee Miller as the editor. I thought it was lively and somewhat chilling, but it really didn't tell me a lot I didn't know about all this.
I thought it was excellent theater.
Yeah.
Great spectacle, but in the end, too kind to Rupert Murdoch, and didn't tell enough of his real
He really
story.
needs to be portrayed by a lizard.
He was almost a supporting character in this play.
Yeah.
It was his editor who was focused on.
Yes.
Next.
And Bill and I saw Tootsie, the musical of the Dustin Hoffman film, Michael Dorsey becoming Dorothy Michaels. They make a lot of twists and turns. What I want to say about this is, what I really loved about it was the supporting roles. Our old friend Julie Halston as the producer of the musical within the musical, as Rita. She was very funny. And Andy, I'm not going to say his last name, and he got a Tony nomination as the roommate, was terrific.
And All My Sons?
Arthur Miller, post-World War II, Annette Bening. I like this play more than I like Death of a Salesman. And Tracy Letts. It's very timely, given it's all about a scandal within a family. It's like the Boeing scandal with the, those planes going down. Benjamin Walker. I highly recommend All My Sons. And the special Tonys.
Yeah, we're very happy that Terrence McNally, out gay playwright of 1,000 Famous Things, is getting a special Tony.
Yes, we have a picture of him. We're a lot out of order, but he's got a picture of him with his husband, Tom Curtihy, who's a producer, who is bringing The Inheritance.
Yes.
There they are. He is bringing The Inheritance that they produced in London, the two-part gay play. That's Tom on the right. This November, I learned on the street this week.
Okay, and Judith Light is getting the Isabella Stevenson Award.
And there she is with Tom Viola, because Judith does so much for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS and has for decades, and we love her.
Yes. All right, off-Broadway. First, the hit movie of the century, Avengers Endgame. This is the first of the Marvel superhero movies with a gay character. Unbelievable.
Gay character, not even a superhero, but a character.
Yes.
We will have a review of it from Chris Cooper in our email this week.
Well, it's director Joe Russo doing a cameo as a guy in a support group talking about his dead husband who vanished in the Great Vanishing. It sounded like The Leftovers, but it's not. It's the part of the plot of the Marvel, yeah. Empire did a big extravagant wedding of Jamal to his boyfriend, but Jussie Smollett has had his contract extended, so they might bring him back, but they're not bringing him back at the beginning of the next season. So they're still thinking about it. His cast members wrote a letter of support, and I'm excited because Josh Howard's documentary, The Lavender Scare, is going to be on PBS on June 18th.
What's The Lavender Scare about?
It's about the government's purge of gay workers in the 50s and 60s. It's a fantastic documentary. It pays great homage to Frank Kameny. I'll tell you more about it as we get closer, but June 18th, The Lavender Scare, and it's going to play in theaters in New York and LA for a week starting June 7th. You might prefer to see it in a movie theater. 10 seconds to mourn Michael Fesco, the creator of the Ice Palace on Fire Island and the CT Cruises.
A pioneer.
Definitely. See you next week.